News tonight. We do hope you had yourselves a very productive Tuesday. Now here's a sneak peek of our edition tonight. Congolese investor Alain Cheke Mayuke commends Rwanda for its secure and welcoming environment for foreigners who live and invest in the country. The Ministry of Trade and Industry has temporarily exempted buyers of hides from various regions because there is no processing factory available in Rwanda. The United Nations commends Rwanda and Qatar for their leadership in the advancing gender equality and empowering women in the line with the principles outlined in the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action. We are glad to have your company tonight, coming to you straight from the heart of Africa, Kigali. And I bringing you the news, English news edition tonight is Martina Abera. Let us begin by informing you that Congolese investor Alain Cheke Mayuke commends Rwanda for its secure and welcoming environment for foreigners who live and invest in the country. He emphasizes that Rwanda's stability serves as a valuable lesson for African nations struggling with corruption and discrimination, highlighting the importance of good governance in achieving sustainable development.
The ALTM factory specializes in processing amethyst gemstones, primarily sourced from Rwanda's southern and western provinces. In 2019, the factory's owner, Congolese investor Alain Cheke Mayuke, received approval from the Rwanda Development Board to establish his business in the country. He notes Rwanda's stable security as a key factor in his decision to invest in this country, among others on the continent.
Peace is the key, so peace and security. If you are in a country where people are being killed, if you're in a country where there's constant theft, if you're in a country where there's corruption, how would you invest? It's not possible. But here, there isn't any. And I'm truly very proud, to be able to say honestly that I'm proud to work here.
Of the 3 projects Alain Cheke Mayuke has in Rwanda, he credits the government for assisting him in accessing international markets. Alain Cheke Mayuke, reflecting on the investment opportunities in Rwanda, affirms that of all the countries he has visited, none compares to Rwanda.
I am Congolese by origin, but I have been based in China for 17 years. I have visited several countries, many countries in Africa, especially in the Central African region. I will show you that Rwanda has a very good business climate. Why? Rwanda gives you the opportunity to work without any hindrance, without people saying you should do this or that. That is Rwanda's advantage.
He also emphasizes that other countries should draw lessons from Rwanda's approach to attracting investors, combating corruption, preventing discrimination, and ensuring security.
Experience before, if people could understand, see what it has, the Rwandans, even the leaders, cannot accept that it happens again. That is to say, we who are here, we see what the government is doing, so great, so that people can live in peace here, and that we who are here, despite everything, we are not stigmatized. I am working as others. They don't say you are Congolese, you cannot work. And the example that people should understand, should know what Rwanda has experienced, they can no longer allow it to happen again.
Alain Cheke Mayuke also notes that Rwanda's history over the past 30 years has provided valuable lessons which have played a crucial role in accelerating the country's development.
We work as we should, under his leadership. He gives courage to Africans to take charge, and he gave that to all of us. He's a true leader, and he fights for his population, not only for himself, but for the whole African community, especially in Rwanda. Until today, we are working. There are no problems. You can't tell me that he is the problem. I work as I should, because he's a leader with a vision, and his vision is the development of Rwanda, not his development. It is the development of Rwanda and all its population. He is a true leader.
Pas son développement à lui, c'est le développement du Rwanda et de toute sa population. Ça, c'est un vrai leader.
To date, Alain Chenke Mayuke's investment has created employment over 400 Rwandans across the country.
The Minister of Justice, Dr. Ugira Shebuja Emmanuel, believes that self-reliance among Africans should be the foundation of good governance rather than relying on external influence. Adam Squizera with more.
Addressing the past, the present and emerging governance and peace-building challenges in Africa was one of the key discussions during this three-day conference. Fatmata Sesai emphasized that the policies of nations should serve as a reliable force for effective governance management across the African continent.
One is the importance of relooking governance to be context-specific. And that's exactly what Rwanda embodies, and that's what Rwanda presents us a lot of examples to learn from many countries who come here to understand that governance has to reflect our context, our history, and the way we want to be governed. That's the first lesson. The second lesson that I've liked, and I think many people are going to learn here who've come from different countries, is around integrated policies.
Using Rwanda as an example, participants in the conference emphasized that justice is the foundation of good governance.
And I have always been a strong believer that if Rwanda can change its mindset to ensure that the governance processes are embedded and owned, then if we follow the example of Rwanda, for example, in my own country, Ghana, we should be able to do the same. So the example of Rwanda is powerful in a way that it can really inspire, given the history of Rwanda from where it came from.
The UN Resident Coordinator Ozonia Ojielo finds that African countries should move away from governance systems still influenced by colonialism.
So we need a total rethink of what governance means for Africa without changing our principles. The principles are about inclusion. They are about participation. They are about respect. They are about human rights. They are about involving minorities. Those principles don't change. But using those principles, how we organize, how we conceive of what governance means for Africans must change.
The Minister of Justice, Dr. Ugira Shebuja Emmanuel, believes that self-reliance among Africans should be the foundation of good governance, rather than relying on external influence.
Can our continent, Africa, which for a long period has been tagged as lacking in strong governance systems, be free from external influences in its internal governance mechanisms? Is it possible? It may seem like a complex issue, but I do believe with the minds here you will get an answer to this. While sovereignty and self-determination are fundamental principles, many African nations continue to experience political, economic and institutional influence from global powers, international organizations and multinational corporations. These influences often stem from historical colonial ties, foreign aid dependency, trade agreements which are unfair, and geopolitical interests. Achieving full autonomy in governance requires strong institutions and strong people, of course, working in these strong institutions, economic independence and regional integration, allowing African nations to set and enforce policies without undue external pressure.
Dr. Ugira Shebuja also highlighted Rwanda's progress in building the integrated governance system that delivers meaningful impact.
Justice system is just a component of governance, and there cannot be governance without justice. So the most important part is to understand justice in the broader sense. Justice is not only going to courts. Justice is broader than going to courts, and this is what we've stressed as Rwandans in whatever when we try to handle or when we try to come up with policies, is that we should look at challenges in a holistic manner.
On the first day of the conference, the discussions focused on sustainable peace, security, and development in Africa, where experts, policymakers, and stakeholders explored the historical context of peace and security challenges in Africa, examined current issues that threaten stability and development, and identifying emerging trends that could shape the future of the continent.
The Ministry of Trade and Industry has temporarily exempted buyers of hides from various regions because there is no processing factory available in Rwanda. We have more on this report.
Hide traders say that those in Rwanda had lost value to the point where a kilogram was being bought for between 100 and 200 Rwanda francs. However, this was down from 500 to 700 francs 10 years ago when the market was open to buyers from other continents. In Kamabuye in the Bugesera district, a site has been designated for a factory to process hides. Fred Mugabe of the Ministry of Trade and Industry affirms that even hides buyers from other continents were exempted, which was only a policy for East Africa.
To enable now the traders to send their products, raw hides and skin on global market, but this is a temporary decision or waiver pending this establishment of leather industries in Rwanda, which is the focus or the goal of the country is to have the leather industries producing, adding value to the available raw hides and skins in the country for the benefit of other economic factors mentioned in value addition, availability of leather products, job creation, export, and others.
A study conducted by the National Institute of Statistics of Rwanda demonstrates that between January 2024 and January 2025, the production of cloth factories and hide-related products decreased by 8.6%. François Kanimba, an economic expert, states that if there were initiatives to support the sector, people wouldn't be going to source them abroad, and even hides from neighboring countries would have been brought in for processing here. If we promoted this hide processing chain starting from the slaughterhouses where the hides are processed, then moving to the tannery, and finally to those who make shoes and other hide-derived products like clothing and jackets, they would get processed hides made in Rwanda instead of having to source them from abroad. In this way, after a few years, we could have Rwanda producing shoes, clothing, and other items derived from hides using hides sourced locally. Beyond that, if it's done well, hides from neighboring countries could also be brought in here for processing if we establish strategies and concrete measures. The Ministry of Trade and Industry demonstrates that if hide processing factories were enough, the sector would generate an annual revenue of $450 million.
The United Nations commends Rwanda and Qatar for their leadership in advancing gender equality and empowering women in line with the principles outlined in the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, which was signed 30 years ago. We have more on this report.
On September 15, 1995, during the Fourth World Conference on Women, 189 countries endorsed the Declaration on the Rights of Women and Girls, committing to the implementation of the Convention. The UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has applauded the progress made by several countries in enabling women to overcome barriers to development.
Equality, development and peace for all women everywhere in the interest of humanity. End of quote. Those are the first words of the Beijing Declaration. And this year marks the 30th anniversary of that landmark conference and its reaffirmation that women's rights are human rights. Since then, women have broken barriers, shattered ceilings, and reshaped societies. More girls are in schools. More women hold positions of power.
However, the UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres emphasizes that there is still much work to be done, as every 10 minutes, at least one woman is killed by her partner or a family member. Furthermore, over 612 million women worldwide are currently living in conflict and displacement, and women in the workforce represent less than 2/3 of the global population.
And the pact reminds us that equality is the engine of progress of all people, and that Agenda 2030 can only be realized when all women and girls enjoy their full rights. It calls for greater investment in the Sustainable Development Goals, expanded debt relief and stronger support from multilateral development banks so that governments can invest in what their people need: education, training, job creation, and social protection that can help drive equality for all. And the Global Digital Compact calls for closing the gender digital divide, pushing back against online abuse, and ensuring women and girls everywhere can access the benefits from the opportunities of a rapidly evolving global economy. Meanwhile, we are also working to end the scourge of violence against women and girls. We must never accept a world where women and girls live in fear, where their safety is a privilege rather than a non-negotiable right.
UN statistics reveal that by 2024, 1,531 laws have been enacted globally to promote gender equality, yet 64% of these laws remain unimplemented. At the UN Gender Summit on March 9th, the organization recognized Rwanda for its significant contributions to advancing women's rights and implementing the Sustainable Development Goals, particularly Goal 5, which seeks to ensure equal opportunities for women and men in all areas of national development.
Students in music schools in Rwanda are eager to pursue careers in that field, driven by a desire to develop their skills by combining their natural talents with the knowledge they acquire through formal education. We have more.
Jabez Ndacyaysenga from Ruhango district has a dream to become a professional and renowned singer.
I'll
be different from others because many musicians don't give their music enough time due to the time they spend in the studios. However, because of the time I spend with producers, I've acquired many skills in production and I've even learned how to contribute ideas. This is different because some artists simply go into the studio, receive the beat and start singing without a clear idea.
Some of the music students are already singers who aim to further develop their talents by building on the knowledge they acquire from music schools. The founder of the music school in Kigali, Eliel Rugwizangoga, notes that approximately 1,800 individuals have graduated from the institution, and he believes it has been highly beneficial for them.
Some became music teachers, others have become producers, and there are some who have started with little knowledge of singing but ended up gaining enough skills to release their own albums. Additionally, there are many children whose parents are grateful to us because their kids are excelling in school thanks to the music classes they have taken.
Music schools continue to face challenges including a shortage of qualified teachers and inadequate equipment, which has contributed to a rising number of self-employed musicians. Jean-Nepo Abdallah Utumatwishima, the Minister of Youth and Arts Development, has assured that the Rwandan government will persist in supporting the arts sector, including musicians.
Artists can be young people or adults, but it has been proven that many of the jobs that exist are in the creative economy. I also want to request that banks in our journey towards the creative economy find common ground so that artists with good, bankable products can be invested in, yielding profits for both the banks and the artists.
Music school leaders say that if they see the potential, they will also teach Rwandan music using traditional instruments, including the zither, la mellophone, fiddle, the flute, and others.
Koko hari umuntu ugihagarara ku nyama muri iki gihe koko uretse nitaba umukiriya kiriya biteze
ariko taye aho kuntoreza imyenda wibereye kuri telefone kweli
ariko ni kuwa mbere nawe wagwa wango uracyari wose icyo nakubwiraga wa muntu niko ye umuntu w'umugabo ku bukwe bwe akambara kositimu itukura iciye n'amaboko noneho none se uyisuza
si wombwiye ngo ngwemo se
ntabwo ari ibintu avugaga
gwemo kuwa mbere kanda akanyenyeri 345 akanyenyeri 2 urwego maze nawe ugwemo. Wikwisondeka.
Thank you for sticking with us on RTV News, and a warm welcome back to other stories making headlines on the international scene. The American South has long been associated with white columned structures steeped in history, but an exhibition at the National Building Museum in Washington is showcasing the forward-thinking architecture emerging from the region. VOA has the details.
Architecture in the southern U.S. states has long been associated with grand columned mansions, lawn front porches for socializing, and the ornate French colonial homes of New Orleans. But at the National Building Museum in Washington, an exhibition called A South 40 is showing off a new southern aesthetic. Dozens of architectural firms submitted the designs of their projects built along a southeastern section of Interstate 40 that stretches from the North Carolina coast to Oklahoma.
We're really excited to partner with University of Arkansas to bring this exhibition to highlight these architects who are doing such great work, sort of working with vernacular architecture but contemporary architecture too, and sort of rethinking what Southern architecture is.
In New Orleans, Jonathan Pate's firm is working on designing affordable housing projects. In North Carolina, architect Catherine Hogan and her team are designing schools and culture centers. A South 40 also features the futuristic University of Arkansas Community Design Center, as well as renovated mid-century Redeemer Presbyterian Church in Memphis, Tennessee.
So I hope this exhibition demonstrates that there is a vitality to contemporary architecture in the South, that there's a quality of construction, that there's a thoughtfulness to it.
The exhibit depicts the South the way these architects see it: dynamic, bold, and vibrant. Architecture is more than just a service or a product. It has power to show off what's important to these communities, says Roy Decker, the lead architect with Duval Decker.
What is sustainable? What is equitable? What is economical? We practice in an area that has limited resources and great need and disparities, and the question is, how can architecture be a positive influence?
A South 40 also explores public spaces, schools, cultural centers, and other facilities that improve the quality of life of local communities.
Marlon Blackwell, this is his work and his practices work, this large barn-like structure, which is actually for a school close to where we all live. And so this is, we would say, I think, extraordinary work.
The exhibit opened in mid-February and will remain open until winter of 2026. Maxim Adams, VOA News, Washington.
Hardliners in Israel have welcomed President Donald Trump's plan for the future of Gaza, which calls for many of Gaza's 2.3 million Palestinians to leave the enclave. They say encouraging immigration does not violate international law. Palestinians have rejected the plan. VOA has the details.
The far-right Land of Israel caucus in the Knesset met Sunday in a special session to endorse U.S. President Donald Trump's plan for relocating 2.3 million Palestinians out of Gaza. Israeli Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich says he is establishing a migration authority within the Defense Ministry to encourage Palestinians to leave Gaza.
Every shekel we will invest in encouraging migration will cost us less than fighting again and again. The budget will not be an obstacle to this plan. This is not just another plan. It is a potential for historic change in the Middle East and Israel.
Knesset member Simcha Rothman says this relocation plan is more realistic than the one recently proposed by Egypt and the Arab League, which would allow the Palestinian Authority to run Gaza without disarming the U.S.-designated terrorist group Hamas.
People will say, let's rehabilitate Hamas. Let's give Hamas all the opportunity to rebuild its forces. How come this is a realistic solution? It's not. It's dangerous to Gaza, it's dangerous to Gazans, and it's dangerous to the peace of this area.
Far-right legal scholars at the Land of Israel caucus meeting say that encouraging emigration from a war zone is not a violation of international law.
We know that in time of war, there are refugees. From Afghanistan, millions of refugees. From the war in Syria, millions of refugees. From the war in Ukraine, millions of refugees. None of this is called ethnic cleansing. Now, the creation of such refugees cannot be done on purpose, but it need not be specifically prevented as a consequence of war.
Representatives of Israeli liberal organizations disagree.
This is not voluntary removal of people, it's displacement or transfer of population. It's a war crime and it's immoral. If you make people's life miserable and then you say they want to leave the place, it's not that they voluntarily go out.
Many at the Knesset caucus called for Israel to reestablish the 21 Jewish settlements in the Gaza Strip, which were evacuated in 2005 when Israel unilaterally withdrew from the territory.
The people of Israel are ready to fight, are ready to carry out President Trump's idea of immigration of the Gazans. At the same time, the people of Israel are ready and willing to fulfill the goal of Zionism, to settle the entire Gaza with Jewish settlers.
While the prospect of rebuilding Jewish settlements in Gaza seems unlikely, most Israelis agree that Hamas should have no role in its future, and some believe the best way to ensure that is to get most Palestinians to leave Gaza. Linda Gradstein, VOA News, Jerusalem.
And that VOA story marks the end of our English news bulletin tonight. And on behalf of the news production team as well as the technical team, thank you for sticking with us on RTV News. My name is Martina Avera. Stay safe and have a good night.